Hey, how's it going everyone? In this video, I want to show you how to make a juicy and crispy pork belly 100% in the air fryer. How convenient, right? No boiling, no overnight fridge time, no wasting salt with a salt crust. Total time from raw meat to crispy, non-teeth shattering pork belly will only take about 2 hours. And if you guys end up liking this video, please consider subscribing. It really helps us keep motivated, and we really appreciate it. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of the video. When you're choosing a piece of pork belly at the market or wherever, pick a nice flat piece, even layers of meat and fat, the skin on of course, and if you're talking to the butcher, ask for a center cut of pork belly. Before we get started cooking, we're going to get a seasoning mix ready to rub onto the lean, fat portion of the pork belly. The seasoning mix is 2 teaspoons of kosher salt, 1 teaspoon of sugar, 1 teaspoon of Chinese 5-spice, a half teaspoon of white pepper powder, and a half teaspoon of ginger powder. And this should be enough for about 1.5 to 2 pounds of pork belly. We're gonna cut our pork belly into a piece just smaller than your air fryer basket or whatever tray, with around an inch or 2 of free space around the sides of the pork belly. Cut 3 to 4 even slits into the bottom portion of the meat, about 3/4 of the way down towards the skin side. So we're not cutting the skin right now. Sprinkle on the seasoning mix that we just made, evenly coat the bottom, inside the cracks, and around the sides as well for good measure, not getting any seasoning onto the skin. Then we're going to surround the meat in some aluminum foil, which will keep the meat nice and juicy. I like to lay a piece of heavy-duty foil that is quite a bit larger than the pork belly, maybe about twice the size. Fold up each edge towards the pork belly, and we're going to get each side at a height that's just about or right below the layer of skin. To deal with the corners, I like to pinch and fold out the excess pieces like this. You'll have 4 edges sticking out of each corner. Sprinkle on some fine salt onto the surface of the skin, like kosher salt or sea salt or whatever, and right into the air fryer at 250 degrees Fahrenheit for 1 hour. One of the best things about air fryers, especially these basket type models, is that they act great as dehydrators. And that is why some recipes call for overnight uncovered fridge time, is because they want to dehydrate the skin. And if you want to eat this crispy pork belly same day, that's obviously a problem. Air fryers, on the other hand, have a strong spiral heating element directly over your food and a strong convection fan blowing and circulating the air on top and around your food. This is what dehydrates the skin on the pork belly, and you can kind of think about it as like why we use hair dryers to dry out our hair. We're gonna go low and slow for 1 hour at 250 degrees Fahrenheit because we want to dehydrate the skin a little bit and slowly break down all that collagen and protein, which will result in a perfectly tender and juicy, fully cooked meat with crispy skin. After about 40 minutes at 250 degrees Fahrenheit, we're going to take out the pork belly, and at this point, the skin is soft enough to use a toothpick or a sharp bamboo skewer to poke holes in the skin. But before poking holes, I'm going to optionally rub some baking soda onto the skin because the alkalinity will help break down the skin a little bit more to crisp it up easier in the later steps. We're going to make a bunch of holes evenly, only going deep enough to puncture the skin towards the fat, and you definitely want to avoid going down to the meat because we don't want the meat juices rising up to the skin. The meat juices might interfere with the crisping process of the skin. You actually don't need to poke that many holes into the skin, only about 6 to 7 holes per square inch should be enough. What I've observed is that if you poke too many holes, then you won't get as many big airy puffs from the skin. I think this is because poking too many holes won't let the skin puff up under high pressure, and poking too many holes will let the air just escape instead of puffing up the skin. If you've ever tried poking holes into pork skin before it's cooked, it's pretty tough to do it delicately. That's why most recipes call for boiling your pork belly before poking holes into the skin, but we don't got time for that. But anyways, after the hole poking, we're gonna tighten up the edges of the foil back up against the pork belly sides. Back into the air fryer at 250 degrees Fahrenheit for 20 more minutes, trying to dehydrate that skin a little bit more while cooking the meat low and slow to keep it nice and tender. After the 20 minutes, we're gonna tighten up the foil against the sides of the pork if we need to, and then back into the air fryer at maximum power Here you can see I'm using Max Crisp on this air fryer. I don't know about your air fryer, but they're all different. We're gonna go about 30 to 50 minutes at 400 degrees Fahrenheit to get that skin nice and crispy and to cook the meat all the way through. So poking these holes will let the pork fat rise out of the skin and also create some air pockets where the skin can bubble up and crisp up when that pork fat gets super hot from the heat of the air fryer. At this stage, you definitely want to take a look to see how everything is going by checking the skin after about 20 minutes or so. In this particular air fryer, we have this viewing window, which is pretty nice, which lets us see what's going on, but if you don't, you're going to want to pull out your basket and take a quick peek every 5 to 10 minutes or so you're not burning something. I don't know about you guys, but I've had a hell of a time trying to get a pretty consistent crispy skin all the way through a bigger piece of pork belly through baking or air frying. Using the exact same methods, sometimes it just works out perfectly. Sometimes there are spots that aren't puffed up on the surface but are still crispy and airy on the inside, and sometimes the skin won't get crispy at all at some spots. Just giving you guys a warning that sometimes that pork belly just has a mind of its own. You can't predict what it's gonna do. In those time lapses, it took about 25 minutes on average for the skin to bubble up like that. But sometimes you just have to be patient and give it some extra time for those stubborn parts of the skin to crisp up. After 30 to 50 minutes, the pork should definitely be cooked through, and you can measure the internal temperature to 145 degrees Fahrenheit if you want to be sure. Take it out and let it rest for like about 5 minutes because it's like super hot, of course. I like to first cut down the cuts that we made earlier, and then I'll cut down the rest into bite-sized pieces. Serve it with some hot mustard or whatever. If you have some pieces that didn't get cooked or like puffed up very well, then you can just throw them back in the air fryer. It'll all be good. If anyone has any tips you want to share with me or anyone else, we'd love to hear it because we're always trying to improve our processes. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you all next time.